So now it's time for us to get to know you a little bit. So tell us about you. What I'm interested in is not your resume. We know you ran an agency, you've got a SaaS platform. What I'm interested in is you're an entrepreneur, first and foremost. We talked about why legend, right? So it's a legendary entrepreneur act that you are involved in. So uh, tell us where you grew up, and then as you were growing up, when was the first time you realized, looking back at those days, that that you showed the signs of what you're doing today in terms of risk taking, building something,
Yeah.
and what was that like?
Right out of college, I was a high school biology teacher. And
Wait a minute, you've gone too far. I'm talking about like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, because that's when everything starts.
this is a good example. There's, I probably have other ones, but I have this one and we're going to muscle through.
Cool.
When I was a teacher, and like on my first couple months, I was given this grunt work, which was go hand every teacher a piece of paper with their supply orders, how many pencils they want, whatever. Then collect all the papers after some time, tabulate them, and give our boss one final piece of paper with all the orders, and then distribute them out. Insane process that we're using paper for this. And I said, why are we not using a Google Sheet with all the products that people want? And then everyone's names up top and they just go and punch in what they want.
Yeah.
And then it sums it up for you. And people came up to me and they're like, that's not the way we do things. And that was really a sign of like, hey, if there's a better way to do something, why aren't we doing it? If there's a easier, more optimized way to do something, why? So I hated status quo. I hated doing things just for the sake of we used to do it yesterday. So I really like to move fast. I really like to break things. I really like to try to find a more efficient way to do something, a new piece of technology, reconsider something. And that has been true for a very long time. So that sort of thought process led me to, I wanted to build an organization where nobody ever felt like I did that day.
So, okay, I mean, I understand, but this, who you have become, manifested itself
Yeah.
into suggesting what you suggested. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in is, how did you get there? Because
Mm,
this obviously didn't fall on your head when you became a
yeah.
teacher. As
Mm-hmm.
you were growing up, certain things happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you said, "No, I'm not doing it that way." And instead of saying, "Okay,
Yeah.
fine, I do what I'm told," right? So, what was the process as you were growing up?
Another thing that comes up for me is I played a lot of strategy games growing up, particularly Command and Conquer and StarCraft, which are real time. It's a type of video game, and I discovered it pretty young in life, like 10. And I would sit around with my friends and play a lot of strategy games, which is basically like you versus the competition, and like how do you use resources in a more efficiently, faster manner, like what problems you have in front of you and how do you overcome those. And my brain just really resonates like that, where it's just like, how do you use what you have available to like get to the next step? So I resonate a lot with just that general mindset, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, strategic game definitely does it. And I've got something for you that I think you're gonna love. But let me ask you a question first. Have you read comic books? Like, were you a fan of reading comic books?
Oh yeah.
The reason I ask that is because reading comic books also improves your imagination. So I'm told that, because growing up, I was not allowed to read those comic books. My mother wouldn't let me, and her reason was because, oh, they have swear words in them. She didn't want me to learn swear
Yeah.
words. So, and then later, I learned. And then actually I could see from my friends that those who were really into it, they could tell stories. So they were able to tell stories much easier and then describe things and things like that. So what I have for you is, since you are into strategy, there is a great quote. I forget who said it, but strategy without tactics is the slowest route to victory.
Mm.
Tactics without strategy is noise before defeat.
Right.
It's exactly what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have this, 21st century phenomenon that started, now about 20 years ago with offshoring and blah, blah, and anybody can do anything at a much, much lower rate and blah, blah. So in the early days, I'm sure you remember, those who just went to these countries that offered outsourcing and hired people and then trusted them to do the work, it didn't work
Yep.
because it was throwing a bunch of tactics at problems, but without the proper plan and oversight and everything else, it just didn't work. So this being, and I'm a huge strategy person. I'm always talking strategy. So it's now you mention it. It's that. So it was a good thing that your parents, let you play these games,
Yeah.
right? Whose idea was that? Was that your mother, your father, or was it? Did it
I think
matter?
I think I just found it with friends. Early days of the computer, right? Just going to the store, maybe grabbing a game, and my parents just being like, "Yeah, this one looks good." Yeah, stuff like that.
Cool. Well, this explains it. So it's you were lucky. I have a similar thing that happened to me. I'm an engineer by training, and when I was a kid, Lego was very popular, and my mother um, wanted to get me Lego, but it was too expensive. And around those days, they had a competitor that also offered something, except it wasn't like Lego that you had these plastic pieces that you would put together. It was a bunch of metal things like screws, nuts, and bolts, and blah, blah. And just like Lego, it would give you the diagram and you had all the pieces and you would like build them. So you had these little spanners and the pliers and everything else. So I started building things, and sure enough, fast forward, I became an engineer by training. So became detail oriented and things like that. So it's all about. That's why I'm always interested. Where was the beginning of this approach? It ultimately comes out.